change the whole world around you and make you happy. Like, you have to change your direction.
You mean the world does not revolve around me?
Unfortunately not, Eric. It revolves around me.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Life Podcast, and I'm here with Benji.
Hi.
Tyler.
Yeah.
And I'm Eric. What's going on, guys?
That was wonderful. I thought that all conversation was going to stop once we pressed record. Like, I thought that was it. That was the end of the conversation.
I missed a lot there by not hitting record a little bit sooner.
It's fine.
Yeah, well.
Anywho.
We've been here for like half an hour already, like just talking as opposed to.
I mean, we kind of have.
Fair enough.
Wow, yeah. Well, what's going on, guys? Happy Monday.
It is Monday. It's Memorial Day.
Yeah. Even though this is going to release next Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Episode 4 is coming out today.
That's it.
Something like that.
See, it's so nice that we can talk about it being so small. Like, and still like know that it was like, oh, it's episode 4 tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Or episode 4 is releasing this morning.
Yeah.
Rather than like, oh, it's episode 1347.
Yeah.
That's
the goal. That's always been the goal. 1347.
Aim high.
Something will eventually get there.
Aim high. And then wherever you land, it's better than where you were.
I guess so. Absolutely.
Everyone's just going to sip coffee at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say, too.
Audio goes.
It's one of the audio clips for the next project.
Right? Well, I guess it's better than like bong hits.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
They're like the gurgling of the water.
So, let's, how was your weekend?
My weekend was good. You know how my weekend was.
I pretty
much spent my whole weekend with you.
Yeah, pretty much. I did see you a lot. Benji, how was your weekend?
We did. Fair enough. Like, we spent a lot of time together as a group of individuals, which is good.
Yeah, that's right. I saw both of you like on Saturday night.
Oh, I'm gonna be rude.
Got a phone call. Oh no.
Well, this is a first.
There you go. Yeah, I know, right?
Do you want to put him on the line?
It's an important. Yeah. We have a caller. Hello, listener. How can we help you? But yeah, my weekend was good. How was yours, Eric?
It was pretty good. You know, I'm about a week away from graduation on college, so it's pretty cool because like last week we were talking about, you know, all that. So just so everyone knows, I do have debt, and I wish I would have given myself the advice, but I am a week away from graduation, so very excited about that, and excited to get the next chapter started.
That's good. You know, well, there's nothing wrong with good debt. The problem is bad debt. You know, I listened to a guy called Dave Ramsey. He's a really big money guy, and he says there's good debt and there's bad debt. And the good debt is the debt that you invest in yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, he's not a fan of student loans. Mm-hmm. He's very much a fan of go to community college and then, you know, do whatever. But you know, the thing of like getting a mortgage where you're investing in yourself. That's really good. And then we talked about that on Friday, on Friday's episode, where it was the idea that if you're investing in yourself, that's never a bad investment. And going forward, you know, you want to pay that down as fast as possible. You want to pay the least amount of interest, but there's nothing wrong with investing in yourself.
Yeah. And that's what I try to not tell myself, but like that's what I always try to keep in mind, that yes, it's going to be a big debt there that will get paid off. But it's just like the mentality of like you're coming into this new season where you're just gonna like be hit with all this, and it's like it's an interesting transition to go through. But I mean, definitely exciting because as long as I'm happy that I got to go to college for something I really wanted to do. So it was being able to do that, and now that I graduate, I get the debt, but it was like a trade-off of what I wanted. You know, I knew that from the beginning. I knew what the debt was going to be when I signed off, and I got exactly what I expected out of it. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's good. You know, and now finishing up one chapter of your life and moving on to something else, that's a good thing psychologically. Regardless of whatever you do, we talk about this idea of accomplishing something. Accomplishing college is a massive step. Like, that's a massive accomplishment. And, you know, doing that is really good psychologically, where you say, okay, I've achieved something, and now I'm going to move on to achieve something else. And that step-by-step, like, linear lifestyle is very important.
You guys ever see that 90s sitcom Step by Step?
Day by
day.
I never actually watched it, but I do remember that theme song.
That's it.
Again,
Patrick Duffy and Susan Summers.
Good for you. I don't remember anybody's name,
Any-
especially.
What were we talking about? Sorry,
We
I
were-
just came in and,
no problem. We were talking about Eric leaving college, finishing college. The idea that investing in yourself is important, and that moving forward, it's good to accomplish things so that it gives you the motivation to move on and accomplish other things.
Oh, absolutely. And we have a plan, and we have at least some kind of vision for the future. That's why you went to college, because you had an idea of what you wanted to do, regardless if it was conventional or not. You have
Definitely
this
not
thing that
conventional.
you're trying to work towards.
Yeah.
You were telling us a story before we started this podcast
Yeah.
thing and everything, and
Yeah.
you were giving this analogy about how life can be, and I'd really want to pull that out of you and see your perspective on what you were talking about.
Well, I guess I speak from experience on it too, because it's something that I had to go through. But when you go and you step into a new, like, everyone knows you when you grow up, especially in like a city. Everyone knows you in a certain way. You grow up with all your friends; they all see you a certain way, and they expect you to be that person for the rest of your life. But as you grow up and you want to follow your dreams, and you want to, you figure out what your passions are, you start to make changes in your life, create that vision board, and, making your bed every morning, and being more productive with your day, and not spending all day with people who don't want to do what you want to do. Well, when you start doing those things, you start to, cause a little bit of friction in their lives, and that makes them a little uncomfortable because they're not seeing you the same way anymore. The analogy I used earlier was something that I heard from somebody else that at this moment I cannot quote because I don't remember, but it is, life is, okay, so you're going through life, and it's like, think of it as you're on a boat, and everyone that you're growing up with, and your parents, and everybody who's raised you and has been there, are all on this boat with you, going in one direction. And the point of life is to leave this boat and go live your own life and create your own boat. But as soon as you go to leave the boat and say, I'm ready, that's when the most friction arises, because everyone is afraid for your life. You're going in a direction that they're not going. They don't know where you're going, and they're going to try to pull you back, and it's going to be like chains and ropes holding you back. And that's the friction of people trying to hold you back and keep you where you are. Other people say it's like the weights of your life. You can't like get any higher because of the people that are holding you down. It's the same concept, is you can't leave the boat until you can break and sever the ties. And not in like a aggressive way, but like, it takes sometimes more friction. Like, it takes more strength to get through that friction, because there's going to be a lot of resistance when you start following your dreams, because you're going in a way that isn't traditional, that isn't conventional. No one knows where you're going. So when we get there, at that point, you have to remember that if you get in that friction, if you're getting all that extra attention of people trying to stop you from going where you're going, that means you're doing it right. That means you're going in the right direction. Mm-hmm. You just can't give up because of the friction, because that's what a lot of people get to. And I'm thankful I haven't gotten to that point where I've given up. But, you get the friction and you get all this extra tension. You look at it like, man, maybe I'm not supposed to go that way. Maybe I'm supposed to stay on the boat. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm supposed to stay here with everyone else, because they all seem to know where they're going.
There's a quote about that I'm going to try to pull up.
You want to work on it?
Yeah.
So I want to grill you a little bit more, Eric. So talking about it, bring it down to the realist level, and if you don't mind getting very personal about it, you are a music producer. Mm-hmm. That is what you do as a professional, as a career professional.
Mixing engineer.
Well,
yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact terms, I guess. But just describe to us some of the things that you're talking about. Exactly as personal influence of saying, oh, well, I'm going to stay, like, being on the boat and being in your comfort zone. A lot of people get comfortable.
Yeah.
You're comfortable with one thing. You're comfortable with one set. People look at you at this one way when you're like, oh, no, I have this idea that might seem outlandish, when typical vision of success would be like, oh, well, I'm going to go work overtime at the bank.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's going to be a common theme here, working overtime at the bank. But that is success, or going and working construction 40 hours plus a week,
yeah,
versus making your money doing something that's unconventional. Can you just share a little bit about your story?
Absolutely. So as you guys know, maybe our listeners don't know, I am a first-generation American. So my parents came off the boat like 40 years ago, And when
Talking about the boat.
talking about the boat, right? So they didn't start their own business. They didn't go in a direction where they're gonna like live the American dream. They got their jobs. They worked construction. They got the job in the factory, and they did their work 40 hours a week for the last 40 years of their life. And that is the way that they learned, and that's the way that worked best for them. So when their son comes up and says, "I'm gonna go be a mixing engineer," a freelance mixing engineer who's going to make it big, doing things that are different, it was a lot of resistance and a lot of like not I guess for lack of better words, they didn't approve it. They were so against it, of course, and you can understand that because they were afraid of where I was going to go. They were afraid that I was going to end up living in a box somewhere. I appreciate their concern, but for me, it was a lot of struggle of me trying to leave the boat and them trying to keep me where I was. And then it worked for a while too. There was a 5-6 year stint where I did have the normal 9-to-5 job, and I did get to a management level, and I did push forward, and I did really well there. Don't get me wrong, I did well in that craft.
Oh, you worked overtime?
I worked overtime at the bank for a long time. But I got to a point where the money and the happiness weren't the same. The bank account looked better than my happy level, and things had to start changing. And it got to a point where it's like, if I wanted things to change, it starts with you. You have to start making changes. You can't expect anything to change if you keep doing the same thing every day. So I got to a point where I just kind of started going against the grain. Like, I knew that nothing, like, I didn't go behind anybody's back. I was very vocal about it, made, speak things into existence kind of status.
Well, that's extremely important, is to be transparent about it all.
Yeah, it really helps a lot when you're just, they're going to give you more scrutiny up front, but it's more in your face, so it's a lot easier to handle. And you just keep pushing forward, and that's what I did. And eventually we got to a point where it's like, I was doing it for so long, and I began to succeed. I started to pull in paychecks from this, and slowly but surely, people, if you do it long enough, you resist long enough, people will let go. They'll still be concerned, but they'll let go. And that's just the angle of my parents, which were probably the biggest influence in my life, obviously, raising me from birth. But
no, there's a lot of that concept is what we talk about as the soup. Like, I've been making the soup this way for a long time, and this soup works. So I'm afraid when somebody tries to change the soup. There's nothing wrong with the concept of different soup. It's just, I've been making it this way forever, and it works. So why are we going to change it? And a lot of people get stuck in that security, that falsification of security, because we're not secure in a 9-to-5 job. We're not secure anywhere. It's what you make out of it that's important, and that we can talk about that specifically. But we have this story that somebody we all know tells a lot, where it's like, this granddaughter, the young girl, is watching her mother make a chicken.
I was thinking the same thing when you started sharing this. I was like, oh, you should use that example.
Yeah, and it's like, and the mother cuts off the sides of the chicken, and the girl is like, "Mom, why did you just cut off the sides of the chicken?" And she says, "You know what? I really don't know. Let's go ask our mom, like my mom." So she goes to her mom, and she's like, "Mom, why do we cut off the sides of the chicken?" And she's like, I don't know. Let's ask grandma, like the great grandmother." And they asked the great grandmother, and she's like, "Oh, we cut the sides of the chicken because the chicken didn't fit in the oven that we had." And it's like, sometimes you get used to this like worn away, like easy crevice. Like, you think of like a couch, and it has like the crevice in it, and that's easy, and you don't want to sit somewhere else. It's the same concept where we fall into this false sense of security, where it's like, this is the only situation that works. And when somebody pushes against that definition of security, we get afraid that we say, like, and sometimes it's a subconscious thing that it says, like, well, if that person can make it, then I've just been wasting my time sitting in this little crevice for all of these years. And that's a dangerous realization to come to, where you say, I didn't go and do my dreams because I wanted to be secure. And the fact that you can succeed at something shows that I could probably have done what I wanted to spend my life doing in the first place. And I think a lot of people are not very okay with that realization, where we get really afraid of, I've wasted a massive amount of time. And the quote that I was looking for, that I have saved on my phone, is, when 99% of people doubt your idea, you're either gravely wrong or about to make history. And that's Scott Baisley.
That's amazing. And you remember that, like, when you do start following your dreams, the people around you will speak fear into you. Not on purpose, but their fear of you failing, and they will speak that to you. Like, if you go that way, it'll never work. If you go that way, you're going to fail, you're going to fall on your face, you're going to spend all your money here, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. From people that don't necessarily, like, you've been going in this direction for so long in this boat, how could you possibly know what's going that way?
Well, they can't
keep that in mind.
They can't see. They don't have the vision. Sometimes we have this the show note, which is so important, and it really keeps us grounded and humble here. It's like sometimes you can't jeopardize sharing the vision with people who can't see past the tip of their nose.
Absolutely. And there's a I know we're running out of time for this segment, but this concept we're going to open probably next segment, the idea of a lot of people lose out on a lot of amazing things because they're afraid to jump. Because sometimes the only option is you have to walk away or you have to jump in. And a lot of people are afraid of what happens if I jump?
I'm going to get wet.
Yeah. I want to dive into that concept of jumping when we get back from the break. Stay tuned.
So we're back on this. Thank you so much for tuning into the Life podcast this morning.
I'm happy.
Eric, I wish that was on camera right now.
It kind of is.
Well,
from the distance.
Did you get an SD?
No, not yet.
Anyways, we started hooking up cameras here in the studio.
Do you need an SD card?
Yes.
Is it a micro SD or like
Yeah,
a full
micro.
size? Yeah, I got a bunch at home. I'll bring one.
Oh, well, you should bring me one too.
Okay, you need one? Yeah, I got
Please.
some.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, I got a ton of them.
And
The
it's on.
hookup.
Yeah, sweet.
Hook up. So we were talking about something and stuff.
We're talking something and stuff. I mean, we were talking about jumping in this, like, I've called it a metaphor because it's like a visual thing of you jumping into your dream. You have to take the leap. A lot of people say this, especially in their motivational talks, like, you have to jump, and I agree with it 110%. What they didn't explain to me was that there's more than one jump.
Oh, absolutely.
When you do that, like, the first jump by far is the hardest. But just understand that there is going to be a series of jumps to get to where you want to go. You have to keep jumping and keep taking chances. That first jump is just that starting point where, like, you kind of overcome the fear of falling. There's a song by Jared Sanders, and he says, "You're not afraid to fly. You're afraid to fall down." And that fear, it's not. You're not afraid to, like, succeed. You're afraid to fall on your face, and you have to overcome that. And you have to take that jump, that first jump, because most times, unless you're, like, I don't know who you are, but your first jump is a successful jump. That's very rare. You have to just do that first jump, that first big jump. Get it out of the way. Fall on your face. Feel what it feels. It's almost like getting punched in the face. You have this weird concept of, like, getting punched in the face is going to hurt so bad, so you don't want to do it. But once you actually get hit in the face, you realize it wasn't as hard as you thought it was going to be.
Then adrenaline kicks in.
And then your adrenaline kicks in. I'm not saying go out there and fight, but I'm saying it's the same concept. You have this, it's the fear of getting hit in the face. It's really going to hurt. When you realize after it happens, it's like, oh, that didn't feel as bad as I thought it was going to feel.
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, coming from an action sports background, growing up doing all the skateboarding, BMXing that I possibly could, or even actually riding motorcycles, that's a big thing. And a lot of people don't like that too. Part of riding bikes is the fact of you're going to lay on pavement. And if you, like, to not be afraid of laying a bike down and actually, I mean, it can hurt. And you can get hurt. As long as you have the right equipment, you will minimalize that hurt. But that's part of riding. Getting caught in the rain, that's part of riding. If you weren't in it for that, you shouldn't have signed up.
Absolutely.
Because when it does happen, you're going to be that guy who doesn't have the right protective equipment. You weren't prepared for it. It's like, it's summertime now, and we can see all these dudes with crotch rockets with, like, a white t-shirt and shorts and sneakers on. It's like, bro, you didn't count the cost before you just got on that bike. You didn't realize that part of riding a bike is there are things that are out of your control sometimes, and you might have to lay it down. I've laid a bike down probably 3 times. It's fine. Even at slow speeds, if you're wearing the right equipment, you're not gonna get hurt. You'll get back up. Be like, oh, like I ripped my pants. My boot's a little scuffed. Oh, my leather jacket has a scuff on it.
That's what I got it for.
I had gloves. Oh, I got to buy a new pair of gloves because this is ripped. But I'm fine.
Yeah.
Because I was prepared for this moment because I couldn't expect it beforehand.
We talk about insurance. That's the same concept. It's I
Burn
would rather never use my insurance. But why do I have it? Because it offsets the cost of a mistake, of an issue.
Yeah.
It's like it's the same concept with our day-to-day lives where we don't want to crash a car or we don't want the house to burn down. That's like never the optimal solution. It's just we're paying ahead so that if that does happen, it offsets our loss, you know? And that's what we have to look at when we take jumps. When we jump into something, we have to accept the good and the bad that comes with that decision. And I'd say this to some people all the time where it's like sitting on the fence is never the best, is never an option. It's like you have to make a decision. You have to be in or you have to be out. And people who kind of delay that decision are making their lives and other people's lives worse in a lot of ways. And it's like making a decision, sticking to that decision, and accepting the results of that decision are important. And that's with everything.
In a little shadow, being a good skateboarder is exactly that too. If you're afraid to fall, I mean, falling down is a part of skating. That's so easy. But if you can't commit to the trick that you're doing, you'll never do it. You're going to waste everybody's time, and you're still going to fall down.
And if you go into the jump thinking you're not going to land it, you're not going to land it. So you have to go into every jump thinking that this is going to be the one. You have to keep that mindset, that positive mindset, because this could be the one. There is nothing stopping you. Your first jump could be the one jump that you have to take to get you to your dreams. But I'll tell you, after I took my first jump, I kind of got addicted to jumping. It became more of I want to jump again. You know, I want to succeed. It was just that first time. It's almost like when you jumping off the high. I never did it on the high diving board. I don't swim, but jumping off the high diving board. You know, that first time you're like, But then the second time, now you want to do it. Or going on a roller coaster, it's the same. That first time is always the scary part. But once you do it the first time, you get the rush. Now you want to do it again. And you want to keep on jumping until you succeed. That's the key. You have to keep on jumping until you succeed.
All right, so we're talking about the boat. We're using the analogy of the old life that you lived, or the life that everybody put you in was that boat that you were born onto. And the only way to succeed in life is to jump off the boat, go overboard, and get somewhere to...
That's not necessarily true.
Okay.
It's only true if you don't want to be there.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. If your boat lines up with the boat that you're already on, you don't have to make radical changes in your life to be happy. If you're happy now, that's fine. Now, if you're not happy, now you go and you make a radical change. You have to make a change. You know, and that's what we've been talking about since the beginning of the show, is the concept of if you're not happy, you have to make that change. Nobody is going to realize you're not happy, change the whole world around you, and make you happy. Like, you have to change your direction.
You mean the world does not revolve around me?
Unfortunately not, Eric. It revolves around me.
Get off the boat.
Yeah, get off the boat.
Been casted off. Go. But yeah, and that's exactly right. Like, if you're happy with where you are, then you're fine. Keep moving forward. Make the smaller adjustments. We're speaking more towards people who haven't been living their dreams, but they are in this place where they want to live their dreams. And like, how do you start? And it starts by going against the grain. It starts by getting off the boat and going in the direction where you want to go, even though no one's going to follow you. And you have to be okay with going alone. That's huge too, is not being afraid of doing it alone. You know, there was at one point I used to be afraid of, like, you know, doing anything alone. You know, when I was younger, and I'd always have to have company with me wherever I went, because it was this weird concept. And I know a lot of people go through that, you know, and I recommend taking yourself out to dinner by yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Take
Going
yourself
to
out to
lunch,
dinner.
yep.
Or lunch, and do that. Spend the time alone. See what that feels like to just be alone. And I promise you'll start to like yourself more and more. Where jumping off that boat and going against the grain by yourself, you'll feel much more confident in doing that.
Yeah. Well, you have to be confident with yourself in the dark. We were talking earlier, I think it was like episode 2. We were talking about how if your internal ecosystem is sound, it doesn't matter what's going around outside of you. As long as you're composed and you're okay with yourself on the inside, then it doesn't matter what you face. You can be alone, and it's like, I'm okay with being myself. There was a quote in the show notes that's by a man named Oswald Chambers, and it said, you are what you are in the dark. The rest is just reputation. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're alone, you are what you are, and that's it. And you have to be confident and comfortable with that.
Yeah.
There's a poem and this is not a new concept. Don't think that we're breaking ground with this concept where it's like this has been around for a long time. This poem that goes, and I'm sure once I start it, everybody's gonna know. It's like two roads diverged in a yellow wood.
Oh, that's Robert Frost.
Robert, yeah.
I thought you were going to talk about Nantucket, but
No.
anyways.
Yeah, fair enough.
Which I still don't know, like I know there's this legend around it, but I don't think I've ever heard the full like Nantucket poem. But
There's
anyways,
so many of
Robert
them. Yeah,
Robert Frost,
fair
go
enough.
Robert Frost.
Yeah, two
Robert
roads
Frost.
diverged. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood. I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
And they both ended up in Nantucket.
Yeah, yeah. No, but like this is such a core concept where it's like, if you take the road that everybody else takes, don't expect to do anything groundbreaking. And if that's what you want, that's fine, as long as that's what you've accepted. If you take the road that nobody's traveled before or less people have traveled, you're going to be faced with a lot more issues and a lot more difficulty because it's less traveled, but you're also going to achieve a different experience than everybody else has.
That was really good.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that concept has stopped being taught. Like, I remember a point in my life where that was like a common poem that everybody used to know, that everybody used to say all the time. And then it died, and that has to be a societal shift. That can't be just a.
Well, you have to go to college to be a success.
The silence was beautiful.
No, but that's
Well,
true.
yeah.
That's the narrative that you get played into, and
Yeah.
people say no. You have to follow this exact cookie cutter mold, even in culture and society. Now it's like if you don't do these right steps, if you didn't go to college, if you don't have $30,000, $60,000 of debt on top of your head, then you're not heading in the right direction.
Or if you don't do what a society asks you to do, or if you don't like hold yourself in the way that a society holds itself, you don't accept the values that a society accepts, then you're going in the wrong direction.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that poem in particular is I mean, it's kind of cliche to say it's one of my favorite poems, but it is one of my favorite poems. I was talking to a friend of mine. Her name is Haley, and we had a conversation about that poem. And she ended up bringing this poem up, and she had a different perspective of it that I hadn't really thought of. And that's the beautiful thing about poetry. It's all perspective. And the way she heard it and the way she's always followed it was the road less traveled. She took it as time. So it was a shorter amount of travel time. So it's a less traveled road. So you get to where you're going faster. And once I heard that perspective, it was really cool because I never I've heard this poem 1,000 times, you know, but that perspective of it, I was like, oh, that's a cool, different look at it. And it's still the same concept. It's like, how do I get to where I want to go? Following other people will not get you there.
It might be shorter, but there'll be more resistance. If I'm just trying to use like visual pictures, and if you look at it and say you have this trail that splits two ways, and one it's like, okay, you can see branches down in it, and it's a little tighter. You'll be bushwhacking a bit, and the other one's just this wide open, almost like a dirt road.
Yeah, because the more you walk on a path, the more it clears out.
Exactly. So I mean, if you take to the left, yeah, I mean it'll be an easy walk. But it's going to take you a lot longer maybe to get there. But the one to the right, I mean, you might have to jump over some hurdles and overcome some adversities. But in the long run, you'll maybe hike a mile instead of 5 miles out of your way.
Go ahead.
No. This concept was one of my father's friends talks about this as the short long way and the long short way. And it's somewhere where you can. Like, you think you make shortcuts, and it ends up being a longer process than it actually should have been. And then there's another one where you do it correctly the first time, and it saves you a lot of time.
Yeah, or headaches.
Yeah,
that's a big thing, and we talked about it right from the beginning of the show. It's like we're gonna start this right, and we were talking about tips for success, and being faithful in the little things, and doing it right the first time, and being consistently right, not cutting corners. And how much more will that set you up for a successful future. Jesus.
And this is a concept of maybe not cutting corners, but I would say if no one's gone in the direction you've gone before, there hasn't been a path made yet. You have to be the first one to start that path. You have to start chopping and going through that that road
There
to
was
start.
there was this guy. He's kind of like a celebrity in New Hampshire. His name was Daniel Webster. I think he was one of the first like Boy Scout like leaders, I guess. He like right from the very beginning of Boy Scouts of America, and he took like this group of like kids. I think they were like 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, and they went and they traversed all of these the highest mountains in the Northeast and made the trails, the scout trails for all of them. Nobody had done it before. It's like, I'm going to take these kids who are apt, and I've taught them and I've mentored them for X amount of years. Let's go and cut some trails. Let's climb the highest mountains in the Northeast so that other people can do it too.
Well, we have a word for this in the English language. It's trailblazer.
Vontad?
Yeah. Yeah, because English is not one language. It's three languages pretending to be one. But no, it's like trailblazer. That concept has lost its meaning. Like,
I haven't heard that word in years.
yeah, because people aren't trailblazers anymore.
Yeah.
You know, the idea that you go and you make a path out of somewhere that there's no path.
I wrecked a trailblazer on a dirt road once.
Oh yeah. I'm sure you're not the first one.
Definitely not the last.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But still, it's like you have a trailblazer, you have this motivation to keep moving forward, to push forward, to carve a new path into something. And it's not that it's easy, it's that it's happening. You know, it's like it's not about how fast you go, it's about that you're moving. And that's what we have to see as people, and that's a decision as a nation. That's a decision as a group of individuals. That's a decision that we have to make for ourselves. That we have to say, I'm moving towards what I want to achieve. That's what's pushing me. Achieving that goal and moving towards that goal and getting to that place. That's what's pushing me. It's not the people around me. It's not the environment that I'm in. It's I'm going to achieve this thing. And I'm going to take whatever steps I need to take to achieve it.
You have to become a trailblazer in your own life. You know, in that small concept, the small window of just you. The only thing you can control is you. You have to become a trailblazer if you want to follow your dreams. No one's you. No one's been you before. You have to walk your own path. You have to follow wherever life takes you. And life will take you where you need to go. But you can resist that. You can go against that grain, but whatever feels right to you is the way you should go. If you're moving forward and no one's around you, but it feels right, like you feel like you are right where you're supposed to be, but everyone's telling you, like, come back, because when you leave that boat, there's always going to be the option to go back. They're going to keep throwing you life rafts until you're miles and miles out. Somehow they going to still reach you. And the option of just grabbing a life raft and going back, or one of those life preservers, and just floating back to them is always there. But if it feels right where you are, you might be alone. That's okay. But if you feel good, you feel happy, you feel happier than you were when you were on the boat, you're going in the right direction.
Right.
Again, this is, I don't know why we're doing poetry hour now, but whatever. Like the concept of, the snapping, but before we run out of time for the segment, the phrase, it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. That concept where it's like, it's better to have gone and experienced something and you're back to where you started than to never have taken that step and gone out of your comfort zone and seen what could have been.
I think one of the weightiest things ever is regret. I would rather have no regrets.
No regrets.
No regrets.
No regrets.
No regrets.
I'm glad.
Not even one letter?
Yeah.
Anyways, we're out of time for this segment, but it's better not to carry the weight of regret and say shoulda, woulda, coulda, than go back to start and say, you know what, at least it didn't work out, but I know the outcome.
That's huge.
And we'll be right back to wrap this section up. Stay tuned. So getting back into it, on the practical life application side of everything that we've talked about, Eric, seeing that we started this podcast with you, you were talking about how life is a ship, and sometimes you have to jump off and swim against the grain to be able to get to where you're going or what your calling is. And if you've had this vision of a paradise and you're working towards it, and you feel called and you feel led to walk into that, what are some of the details of your story in regards to the analogy that you gave?
Well, I guess we could take it back to like the first jump I can remember, which just might. I mean, this is the first jump I can remember. The first big jump, I guess, would be like going and signing the paper to go to college. Because I had, like, when I got out of high school, I was going to go to college. It was going to be a tech school. And then I got all the way to the point of, like, admissions and, like, enrollment. And as soon as they put the paper in front of me to sign, I walked out of the office twice. Something in me just didn't feel right. It was just like a huge, like, don't do it. You don't want this. Don't do it. And I walked out twice. And that was weird. And I didn't, like, now I understand it. And then I went to work and did all that. And then 5 years later, I'm 23. College comes back around. But this time it's a completely different field. I've been following my dream for a little bit at that point, and I knew that I needed to do something extra to get me where I wanted to go, which would be business, to understand how to, run what I was going to do. And then that contract came, and I remember that same feeling almost arised, and I just remember, like, I need to jump. I'm jumping today. And I signed off. And that was the first big jump where I, like, signed off on a heck of a, nothing crazy, but, a decent sized loan. And that was what I thought was going to be, this is it, this is going to be my jump. I don't have to jump anymore after this. I mean, rude awakening after is like, oh, wow, okay, so now I have to keep jumping. And because you just want to keep jumping, because after that first jump, now you're not satisfied with where you landed. So I want to jump again. I want to jump again. I want to jump again. And sometimes it takes time between each jump, but it's very important to understand that you have to keep jumping. This is life that we're talking about. You don't just wake up. Kobe Bryant said it best when he did his retirement speech. I believe it was a retirement speech, but he was saying that if there's one thing that I want my children to learn, is that you don't wake up one day and start living your dream. It is the process of waking up every single day and putting in the work every single morning that gets you to where your dream is. It's not this weird fallacy of you wake up one day and my dreams came true. You work every single morning of your life. You practice hard. You play the big games. That's what gets you to your dreams. If you're not doing that extra work behind the scenes, the dream will never come to pass.
And so that's a conscious decision. That's not something that passively happens. If you're thinking to yourself like, oh, well, I don't actively, like, I have dreams, but nothing ever seems to happen. Are you actively participating in your dream?
Are you actively participating in your life?
Yeah, exactly. That's an even more important part. It's like, are you a passenger in your own life? We have to take control of what we're doing. We cannot wake up we've talked about this before on the show, where you cannot wake up every single day and be on autopilot all day and go to sleep. That's not how this system should work. If you're at that point, there's a fundamental flaw with how you're living your life. And that's not even like a maybe. That's a yes. Like, if you live your life on autopilot, something is wrong. You have to change. If your dreams are on the wayside because you want to just coast for a while, the danger isn't the coasting. It's the fact that you might never start up the engine again.
That's it.
When you're in aviation, when I was going to start the pilot's license, that never ended up happening, but eventually one day we'll get there. But like the biggest danger is like when you have to restart an engine in the air. It's not the fact that you can turn it off. It's the fact of this might not start up again. If this doesn't turn back on, we're in deep. Like we're not gonna get out of this one pretty easily. And that's the dangerous part, where it's like when we say I'm gonna put my dreams on the side for a minute. That's a dangerous place, because we might never pick them back up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I want to tell everybody who's listening, it's time to dream again. If you feel like you've lost that spark, if you felt like that's you and you're coasting in the air right now, it's time to dream again. Pick up that dream, pick up that vision, pick up that drive, that engine, that drive to go in the right direction, and start taking those steps. And I want to encourage you too, if you feel like you're a salmon swimming upstream, all of the best minds have gone against their time. The prophets of our generation go against the grain. They don't follow culture. Benjamin was talking about, rock and roll was completely anti-culture, and it changed and revolutionized the world. The punk rock movement changed rock and roll in general, even from what it was as an establishment of being anti-establishment. It's like we're even more anti-establishment. But every great voice and every great movement has been against the grain at some point. Whether you have to push against those who are closest to you, sometimes you have to push off. You got to pull for you.
Yeah.
And other times, you might have to pull against society. You might have to pull against culture. But it all relates back to, where's this dream coming from, and how am I going to see it accomplished? We're not saying step on people as you go, but sometimes you might have to push off and say, no, my dreams are this way. I can't help that you're going that way. But if you want, you can come and partner with me and come this way. But if not, that's fine. Stay on the boat because I'm going for a swim.
You talk about the origins of Lamborghini, where it's like Lamborghini bought a Ferrari.
Hey, you want a tractor?
Yeah, Lamborghini made tractors, and the owner of Lamborghini purchased a Ferrari, and he didn't like it. He said it's not fast enough or whatever. And the heads of Ferrari were like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You just make tractors.
Oh yeah.
And Lamborghini was like, watch this.
I didn't know that. That's
yeah,
great.
and he made cars, and now they're a luxury car company. They still make tractors.
Yeah.
By the way,
I knew
Like,
that.
Yeah.
I knew they made tractors, but I didn't know the story behind it.
It's like
You have a
and-
dream of owning a Lambo? First, buy a tractor.
Yeah, you can buy a Porsche tractor too, or you could before. But nonetheless, the idea that it's like, just because no matter where you are, if you make tractors right now, stay with the analogy. If you make tractors right now, and you say I want to make sports cars, that's only a few standard deviations away. Like, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. Yes, the Lamborghini had a lot of resources, but
Can we put a mower deck on our sports car?
yeah, yeah.
Got all the grass. This is a good time.
That's and you think of, like, if you're a car person, you think of all of, like, the influential cars of every generation. They were just the crazy ones. You think of, like, the McLaren,
the Countach.
the Countach, yeah, the Lamborghini Countach,
Okay.
the
That's the like, if you saw a picture of it, that is the. Oh, did you ever play Grand Theft Auto Vice City?
Yes.
You ever drive one of those cars, the Diablo?
Yep.
There you go.
basically
one
the
with the
same
drop
thing.
roof, yeah.
Countach.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But it's like, you think of all of these different concepts. So it's like all of these different cars. The Porsche 911 was revolutionary. It was revolutionary multiple times. And, like, you think of something that's as pure as the 911, as pure as this is the car. If you looked up car in the dictionary, the 911 would be there. And every single time, how many times has Porsche revolutionized the market with their new car? And it's like, just because you're in it, and this is a statement to, if you're not in a good place, you can be in a good place. And if you're in a good place, you can revolutionize every single time you change. You can make a change in your life. Even if you're in a good place now, you can be somewhere better. Just because you're in a place where you're comfortable, being comfortable is the danger.
Settling.
Yes, the CEO of AMD, the processor company, he said something so revolutionary in an interview. He says, the day that you say I can't be replaced is the day that you started the countdown to the day you get fired.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that's the core that core idea where you become complacent, you settle, your life gets worse from that day forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
So wrapping this up, what tips do we have for the listeners to be able to go and if they feel the calling to jump ship, how do they pursue their dreams?
I think we should give them advice on maybe what to expect instead of like how to start. I think we've already kind of hit the nail on the head over the last few episodes on how to start, but what to expect after you start, going in your own direction.
We were talking between the breaks, and I was kind of playing around with the boat analogy. If you're jumping off a main ship to go and seek something else, even if it's the lifeboat, but you have to jump off, don't be afraid of getting wet. It's gonna get wet. It's like, oh, I don't want to jump off the ship because it's gonna get messy and wet, and I might have to swim for a little bit, and it's gonna be uncomfortable. I might get tired. My muscles might hurt. I might have to swim for a mile, but I saw the vision down the road. So be it.
That's right.
A lot of people say, I don't like to make decisions, or I don't want to make that decision because my life's going to change. Somebody used an example one time. It's like, you get a goldfish, your life changes. Don't make excuses because I don't want my life to change. I don't want my lifestyle to change. I don't want this to change. If you want to advance your life, there is going to be a change. Life changes, period.
We were talking the other night about the difference between being a peacemaker and a peacekeeper too.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that's a big thing too. When you talk about peacekeeping, that's usually like hush hush. I'll let people trample and walk all over me because I'm just gonna keep the peace. I'm not gonna say anything. Whereas being a peacemaker, to make something is a physical action. Sometimes you have to disassemble. Sometimes you have to build. I mean, think about making a table out of raw scraps of wood. It gets dirty. It's a messy process. But at the long run, you have the benefit of the table afterwards. Sometimes you'll have to be able to make peace with the people around you or the circumstances and saying, hey, listen, I'm going in this direction no matter you like it or not. I don't want to hurt your feelings. Maybe you don't agree or understand with my decision, but you'll see that it's better in the long run. And you'll have to make that peace up front rather than, going around behind the back and trying to accomplish your dreams with nobody knowing.
Get in front of the train.
Yeah.
Yeah, so instead of just waiting for, like, the things that you see are coming, get in front of those things and address them at the root. So before it gets to a point where it's like it gets more like taxing on you and your dreams.
Well, that will eat you from the inside out too. If you're working behind the scenes and that thing's festering inside of you, and you can't manifest it out and say, "Hey, listen, this is what it is." The most liberating thing. I mean, think about it. Even people coming out of the closet, that is like the most liberating thing. And people walk into that queer identity. It's like they want to commit suicide in their closet for X amount of years, and then it's like, oh, well, I'm liberating. I live this type of lifestyle now. They're able to at least walk into a healthier emotional place because it's like, it is what it is. I'm not trying to hide what I was trying to be earlier. And it's the same with us. It's being transparent, whether it's that business venture that you have, or I want to pursue my dreams as a mixing engineer, or I want to be a musician, or I want to be whoever I want to be. I'm going to manifest that out whether anybody likes it or not. I'm not going to sit on it. I'm not going to incubate it in hiding. It is what it is, and now that it's in the light, take a plant. If we had a plant in the studio here, the studio is in a dark lit place, it won't grow. It'll be bound in the pot, and it will stay this little tiny plant. That's it. Until you bring it out into the light, until you take its roots and put it in real soil rather than this pot bound, that's a term. It's like I think it's called pot bound. When you take a plant, it only grows as big as the pot that it's in. Sometimes you have to jump out of your little pot and get planted in the real dirt outside that's been unventured and unexplored so that you can blossom as the plant that you are. You complicated houseplant with emotions.
Yeah.
And sometimes things are gonna look like they get a lot worse before they get better.
Absolutely.
It's like, you think of surgery. If you didn't understand what surgery was, and you watch somebody who looked perfectly fine cut into somebody and take them apart, remove something and put something back in, you would think that the person was insane. Because it looks like this like horror show. You're taking somebody, you're cutting into somebody, you're ripping somebody apart, and then you're putting them all back together. But we as humans in a developed nation understand that surgery is a day-to-day part of life.
Right.
And it's like your dreams,
That's really good.
most of the time, will look like everything is falling apart right before it works out.
It's true, and it's that pain, that there's pain in that momentary affliction, but knowing that it will work out for the good afterwards. There's sorrow in that night. There's sorrow in that time. It might be a little bit of time of persecution or whatever you have, but know that there'll be joy in the morning.
Fire is required to make steel.
Yeah, that's right.
That's it.
Right. It's gonna get hot.
What was that? What was that thing we were reading this morning? The furnaces for silver and the furnace for gold and the crucible for silver.
Yeah, the refining pot for silver. The idea that that phrase is so important, where it's like the level that you want to achieve requires more information. Like silver is a very you can melt silver with a butane torch. You cannot melt silver, or you cannot melt gold with a butane torch. The higher the purity of the metal that you want to achieve, the higher the purity of the value, the more you're going to have to go through. You can melt silver at home. You can melt silver at home. You cannot melt gold without proper equipment. You cannot melt platinum without even more specialized equipment. And that's the thing, where it's like, depending on the level of what you want to achieve, you have to utilize different equipment. You have to push yourself higher.
And you can't be afraid of the heat.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yes.
Well, you're gonna the higher you want to go, the purer you want your vision to be. We're talking about like silver and gold, obviously, as a shadow.
Yeah.
But you want to be on that gold standard. You're gonna go through a lot of fire.
Diamonds. Diamonds are the best example. The way that you make a diamond is you take carbon, which is useless, worthless as itself.
This
We're all made
black
of carbon.
piece of trash.
Yeah, it's just a black element. You compress it and you heat it down. Massive, massive quantities of pressure and massive quantities of heat. And what you achieve is a crystalline structure. You have to change the structure of carbon to be from a carbon structure to a diamond structure. There's a physical change inside of something that happens. And outside of that, you create this sparkling thing. And then you have to go further and you have to cut away the parts that don't look beautiful. And you release what's inside of it. That's why we use the phrase a diamond in the rough.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that has so much potential, but it's surrounded by so much trash. And we have to cut away the trash to reveal what's inside. That's what we are. That's what you have to do every single day. You have to cut away all of the excess.
Beautiful.
So I guess that's it. We'll leave that there. We can talk about more of that once we come back on Wednesday.
Yeah, so follow your dreams, people.
Nobody's going to follow them for you.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. So we'll see you later.
Thank you for listening to the Life Podcast Show. We really appreciate all your support. We meet every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning just to talk and share our perspectives on everyday life situations. If you haven't already, please share this with your friends and give them a chance to join the conversation. Also, if you liked what you heard today, rate our podcast. The higher the rating, the longer we can keep this going. And a special thanks to our future sponsors that will soon partner with us on this journey. If anyone would like to contact us, please email us at thelifepodcastshow@gmail.com. One word. That's thelifepodcastshow@gmail.com. Be blessed and have a wonderful day.